Alright, mhuri yeZimbabwe, kusangana kwatiri kuita zvakare ipo pano paZimu News Update, apo patinoda kupa mafirst hand update anonga ari kuitika munyika yedu yeZimbabwe. So zvino hazvina kumira zvakanaka apo patiri kuona Constitution Amendment Bill number 3 rakapaswa naPresident Emmerson Mnangagwa. Vese vaishandiswa naShabangu vaya vachaonekwa kunzano, vachatoona Shabangu cheche akatombosimudza kanyaya akatombosimudza muparliament, but akatoonekwa kunzi hausisina dhiri because zvataida zvakaita takakushandisa zvakaita mhuri yeZimbabwe. So tiri kuona panapa makakatanwa pakati pavachiwenga navaMnangagwa, apo patiri kuona vaMnangagwa vakapotsa vachiwenga, ndofunga muchiri kuzviziva muna 2018. So tiri kuona vachiwenga vava kutamba vakangwarira. So vasiri kunyasa kuona kuti chichi kunyasa kuitika maarmy generals, because maarmy generals vari kufa zvisina kunaka mhuri yeZimbabwe. So panapa tiri kuona pakanyorwa kunzi Agent Comrade Gageni Ajanga warns plotting to kill VP Chiwenga, several generals, war veteran, and jailing soon. Full expose later coming tonight to the world. We will share it. Unit generals, unity of veterans protect each other to save Zimbabwe life saving. Mhuri yeZimbabwe ndofunga tiri kuona ndozviri kuitika panapa. Takuti muende tiende kune mashoko akasungisisa anonzi Mbidzo uya ari mukati meusungwa. Tiri kuona muzuva ranhasi anga atopfeka mabhurauni chaicho atori mukoti. Tava kuti munyase kuona mashoko akamusungisisa. Tauya nawo pano, hatisi kuziva kuti tokwanisa kugona kumawana here kana kuti tinomashayiwa pano, but tanga tinewo mashoko akamusungisisa mhuri yeZimbabwe akabata chiposta ayarapa ya mhuri yeZimbabwe. Regedzai munzwe mashoko akamusungisisa.
Good morning, fellow Zimbabweans. So the day is on, fellow Zimbabweans, on the 31st of July 2026. Let's all stand up, fellow Zimbabweans, and demonstrate as guided by Section 59 of the Constitution. Let's all make sure we demonstrate peacefully against the amendment of the Constitution of our land by the ZANU-PF regime. Fellow Zimbabweans, as you know, we adopted this constitution by 2013. It is a very beautiful document which protects human rights, which protects the rights to vote, it protects the right to health, it protects the right to education, it protects the right to dignity. And today we find that constitution is being amended at willy-nilly, without our inclusion, without a collective agreement with us by the political party which is in power. So fellow Zimbabweans, let's stand on the 31st of July 2026 and demonstrate against this bill, and demonstrate so that they repeal this illegal amendment, they repeal this illegal law in our land, fellow Zimbabweans. So let's unite. Today we must have been talking about jobs, we must have been talking about free education, which is enshrined in the constitution of the land, but instead the government.
Mhuri yeZimbabwe ndo mashoko akamusungisisa ivavo. Tiri kuona kuti akangoyerukana pamba pake makusene pasvika maCIO nemaCID, then vakabva vamutora obva vaenda naye kupolisi, but hatina kunzwa runyerekupe rekuti akarohwa kana kuti haana, but tamuona kumatare ezemhosva muzuva ranhasi akatopfeka hembe dzebhurauni nenhauhwa iyoyi ndo yakamusungisisa. Nhaurwa iyoyi yekuti toda kuinfluenza vanhu kuti vange vachiratidzira musi wa31 ndo nhauhwa futi yakasungisisa vanyoka yemabhunu vari kuda kunge vari vanopedzisa sentence yavo kuno kunyika yeZimbabwe. So ndo mamiriro akaita nhauhwa dzetinadzo pano. Ndoda kuti munzwe Comrade tinawo pano vanonga vachimbotionesawo nenhauhwa dzezvematongerwo enyika nekuti toita seko nenyika ino yeZimbabwe.
To the greater part, the other presenters on the lobbyist were not specifically pertinent to Zim as economy. But whether or not you can be a lobbyist, yes, you can. Absolutely. But I only say the area of lobbying that you are choosing, you need to prove that you're an expert to it. Or you have a group that possesses the expertise. That alone is enough. You can lobby in any area. I'll give you an example of maybe gray areas. You can go in the lobby that you no longer want gasoline vehicles in Zimbabwe because of the damage they are causing to the environment and the people of Zimbabwe. And the next thing is you will have to take an advocate. Can we have electric vehicles? Because our country is endowed with lithium, and the most electric vehicles are using lithium batteries. So you have lobbied against and you have lobbied for. You can do this, and it's very possible, and it's allowed. That's how sound it is. Zimbabwe has not operated this with a threshold. Normally, in the US market where people were trying to Google around, lobbyists belong to specific political parties. In many instances, they are not very neutral. Therefore, that is why they are supposed to declare their interest and their assets. Because they wouldn't want the organizations to fail to declare their interest and they get the society to suffer because they are advancing the interest of a specific organization. I'll give you this example. If Tagwire comes to take a lobby in Zimbabwe, he is doing it for ZANU-PF. And the ZANU-PF will take a credit for it. But it may be good for ZANU-PF and not good for Zimbabweans. So the government has already put a law for checks and balances to say if this is an interest of a political party, bring it to the Congress, then it will be debated. Not necessarily that it is a civic society matter. That is why the checks and balances have to be proven, which I also think that Zimbabwe should be able to graduate to that level and say when a person, I want all farms registered, is it not a hindsight that he would want to use those title deeds to buy those farms, and you hear that the rest of Midlands has been bought by Tagwire? No one owns any farm there. He has bought all the farms because anyway, they were held by people who are poor, who don't have money, who don't have means for survival. So he can approach them and say, can you sell this farm to me? And the title deeds are passed on. Yes, the government created a caveat for those title deeds to make sure that they are not going to be parceled out probably to one individual. Mnangagwa can preserve 15 billion that we had by Robert Mugabe, that it disappeared in the nation. And they buy the rest of farms in Zimbabwe and eventually owns Zimbabwe by possessing those title deeds. That is very possible. So the government should look at it and make sure that there is an independent institution which runs those transactions. If he sees extraordinary transactions happening around those farms, they raise an alarm to the public. And that is common cause. That's
sorry, Anodiwa, I just have a question if you don't mind.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, and it might break your train of thought and skip ahead, but I'm glad you've explained lobbying in the way that you have. Because I wanted to ask if everybody kind of agreed on what I feel is like sort of a common understanding of what it is that in Zimbabwe, do you think we are using whatever groups we've got for lobbying for the right reasons? And the reason I was asking that, it sort of comes back to the topic about corruption and stuff. And I was trying to understand, Woody, in Zimbabwe, do we really have evidence, to say this is going on and try to take action for that? Or do we not even, use these groups or lobbying powers enough to try and get that evidence and action enough movement to make it, useful or make a change from it? I don't know if you get where I'm going there.
I am getting you very well. Let me be frank with you. Lobbying has been independently advancing its roots in Zimbabwe, and it has been helping the general public. I'll tell you, the creation of NASA itself is a creation of lobbying. Before NASA was incorporated in Zimbabwe, we used to have the Old Mutual and Fidelity Life, Zimri, and so on as insurance gurus that were taking pension funds and investing them on behalf of the people. But lobby groups identified that we needed something of national nature that belonged to the people of Zimbabwe, and NASA was created. Yes, NASA advanced that interest which the lobbyist had. Yes or no? Yes and no. Yes, because yes, it managed to help the general of Zimbabweans who could not afford the rules of insurance to invest in a pension fund with NASA, and the government had to take responsibility. No, because in many instances, Zimbabweans who have retired have not gotten a benefit naturally because of mismanagement of government and the government policy regarding the investments in pensions. That is why a no would come. Let me attend to the second aspect of corruption. That's why I said we are running a little bit too late, because the party that formed the government is not democratic in nature. It would require one-party state, making them either a socialist, an autocratic government. That alone, when you hear that they are lobbyists within or amongst themselves, the end of it is corruption. There's no one who is suggesting something but to benefit in the end. It does not then benefit the general public. Right now, when you listen to this story of title deeds, the general public, when they hear that story, they feel proud. They have a document to show for the parcel of land they have or they were given. Everybody else celebrates. But they don't know the consequences that can come. If money is not evenly distributed in Zimbabwe and is found among 10 people, they can sit down and agree to say, let's use our money to take the land. And they can do it. And once they buy that land through a title deed, you cannot dispute in any court, including internationally, they will be protected. And that can happen. So such policy, this is where Signoro comes in. If Signoro thinks there is a danger that's likely to come with the government policy regarding title deeds and so on and so forth, can the government create a caveat on those deeds? Caveats such as, if you are holding 50 hectares, you can sell not more than 30 hectares. That's a caveat. You always know that at least this person can sell part of it, but he will remain with it. So eventually, the country will be owned by everyone. You will not have a bourgeoisie coming into the country just like Cecil John Rhodes coming through and negotiate with the monarch. The monarch sits down and signs a document to say, this land belongs to me as the monarch. If you want any piece of it, I can sell it to you. And he signs a document. The following morning, the rest of you wake up, the country belongs to one. Maybe, say, for example, I'm taking the example of Elon Musk. He says, I have interest in mining rights. For me to mine, I'll take the land. Then it's his land, so he can mine freely. That temptation can come, especially with the evidence of where our gold is going, how it is being sold, why our coffers has no money, why we don't have a currency. It means to say we have leaders that have high palatability on distributing their resources. My second evidence in this is how the local government has been operating. I found out that in many urban council land, many mayors that have been administering those places have been selling pieces of land to pay wages. Just think of it. Land has been sold to Chiangwa for people to be paid wages. It means to say the council lost land for the bread. Instead of the council partnering capitalists to build as many homes as they could accommodate citizens, and it collects more rates and they pay wages. That is a contrary decision. Collecting rates is forever. Paying wages is forever. May not be able to collect any rates from that land. That makes it different. A person can take 50 hectares, where he can build 20 houses, and the person who has taken the 50 hectares can just put one factory. And you are now collecting one rate on one property, and that the equivalence is not the same. So this is the reason why we are saying Signoro comes in and say the policy of selling urban council land to private individuals is unhealthy. It does not promote sustainability of our urban councils. Rather, it depletes resources and we have nowhere to go tomorrow. And in some instances, when the council does not have land, we may not have recreational parks. We may not have a natural land around us. That talks to the leadership. Do they have the vision? What kind of a country do they want to manage for you? What is their vision? Because now I'm talking in this space. If you don't capture my voice, I may not be there the next 20 or so years. The knowledge I have, you may not harness it, you may not harvest it. So I must speak on this space responsibly for the future generation to find something to learn. Not then to engage in an act of breaking the law as we did as Zimbabweans, to say we're going to chase away whites and we're going to repossess our land. On a moral ground, everybody can be persuaded we are doing the right thing. But in terms of the law, something was broken down which should not have happened in our society, and it happened. Now we are standing to be a revolutionary people. But we are breaking the law because we are not living alone. We live in an international environment where the government of Zimbabwe is challenged on their policy, which is domestic policy, and they are made to compensate by the greater global village, because they still need that global village to interact with it, to trade with it, and to also do business with. So, Jabba, I have said a lot of things, but before I said a few more things after I had attended to you, your vision is clear, is straightforward, and it's very correct. The reason why I will add this to your view. The reason why, personally, it stood against CAB 3 is not because entirely it is bad. No. It's because the people who are taking that exercise of amending the constitution are not honest. Their intentions can never be honest, because you cannot have one well producing bitter water and at the same time sweeter water. So it's either that well produces bitter water and I throw away that water, or it's sweet water and then I preserve that water. And this is the mind that must guide all Zimbabweans when they make decisions of who should govern over them. You should not select the few good things, and they condemn a lot more bad things. There are certain frameworks that when you define leadership, everyone who gets into that position should qualify. If they come short of it, they should never occupy that office. And that is correct. And that is the way we should be making our decisions. Obviously, on CAB 3, it's a big no. You cannot take away the vote from the people. In a generation where we need to have more say, we need to have more representative government in all areas of our life, probably including our chiefs. We could graduate to that level. But when you begin to say, no, I want to be a king, and no one should vote me to be a king. I should remain a king, and nobody should have a say over my decisions regarding this nation. The people of Zimbabwe should never allow such a thing to exist in the 21st century. He missed the generation he was supposed to survive. And that cannot be allowed. It's a complicit situation, even the UK itself. These countries that are decoupling themselves, eventually they will decline to be under the monarchy, because it's in conflict with the democracy as capital flows from one hand to another. You cannot invest in a nation naturally depending on one person or one family's decisions. One would say, but Dubai is doing it. Dubai never declared themselves to be a democratic republic of Dubai. We declared, we promised people, and we taught them that's who we are, and that's a culture of changing power. So that promise is where we are standing. There is no man who is allowed to marry a wife based on a story which he changes after he gets married. That woman has a right to divorce that man. The same applies with us. If the leaders promise us something during the campaign time and they change their message after they are in the office, we are supposed to reject them. The government never campaigned for the change of the constitution. Never. They never told us they wanted to create electoral college, specifically out of voted MPs. So we didn't even know about that agenda. So you're robbing us. That's not democracy. So those are the possible reasons why I would stand on a podium and condemn the government for the action they took or did. Would I want the army to be in the street and protect a rocky government, or refuse to salute another opposition leader should they get into power? Obviously, I don't want that army. I want a soldier who belongs to an institution which protects the nation, and I want that soldier to be respected, and I respect that soldier. But I don't want the soldier to be the kingmaker. The kingmaker are people, not an institution. That is why I would think an honest repeal of that section of upholding the constitution would make it necessary, but the courts should give interpretation of what it means. They will exercise their duty as mandated